Good evening. ළමයි ඔයාලට මම ඇහෙනවද?
Good evening, sir.
All right. Okay. So welcome to the advanced business reporting subject. I think this is the first time you are meeting me in the advanced business reporting subject because I think Lalisa take up the all six sessions, the first six sessions. So basically, I think he has discussed with you regarding the advanced consolidation part, right? So before starting the session, I want to emphasize that when it comes to this subject is a kind of uh, let's say kind of a difficult subject to most of the students because like most of the students are not aware about the standards properly, right? And also there are some sort of advanced parties there, so there are so many theoretical aspects as well. So therefore it will become some sort of some sort of difficult part, right? But this subject is very important because when it comes to the chartered or the CA examination, so you are getting exemptions for this subject. But even in the what do you call the new syllabus, right? There is a high possibility that you are getting exemptions in the corporate level for this subject, right? So therefore, you have to score more than 50 marks for this subject. So I think it is more easy than the chartered examination to get the 50 marks from this subject because we are the ones who are preparing the paper and we are doing the lecture. So you are having some sort of advantage over there, right? So therefore, you have to thoroughly study this subject, right? So this subject is not very much easy. It's difficult, right? So there will be a possibility of fail. So therefore, you have to work hard, right? So that is the first thing. And I think there are more than 100, so this subject is done by all the 3 degree program students, right? I think there are more than 230, but only 81 participants, 80 participants is there, excluding me. So therefore, I encourage you all to participate with the lectures, even though I know you guys are going for the internships and having a kind of hard time. I know because I'm also experienced that one. So therefore, I know the difficulty, but even though you are having a difficulties, you have to participate with the lectures. So otherwise, no point of being there, right? Uh, uh, so because this is the time you have to do the studies and you have to complete your career because you have to face the future in the like you have to face to the future in next 2 years, right? Your academic journey will be finished off after 2 years. Then you have to start your professional journey, right? So therefore, you have to be a kind of a qualified person, right? All right. So I hope you all are going for the internships and you are having kind of internships opportunities, right? Since you are having that opportunity from the third year, it's better to get that opportunity at the very beginning, right? I think I have told this in the business reporting subject as well, right? Okay. So with that, I'm moving on to the discussion. So basically, my part when it comes to this subject, I'm not going to discuss about the consolidation. I think you are there with me when I'm discussing the consolidation in the business reporting part. But here I'm not going to discuss the what do you call the consolidation in this subject. I'm basically focused on some standards, which is very, very important. Like it's kind of advanced standards, which is very important to you when you are doing the financial reporting and when you are doing the financial reporting analysis or when you are working on the financials, right? So I'm starting with a kind of when it's come to the harder ones. So this standard, we can say it's much more easier than what we have to discuss in the future, right? So I'm going to start with the IFRS 13, or we can say the same thing when it comes to Sri Lankan context, SLFRS 13. Yes. Anyone knows what is the meaning of this standard or what is the name for this standard? SLFRS 13. So you have to talk with me, right? Even though you are on the way to your home, or you can use a chat box if you can't talk, but you have to engage with me. So anyone knows what is the standard for the SLFRS 13? Yes. Yes. SLFR is 13. I like to hear your voices. මොකද SLFR is 13 standard එක.
Fair value measurement.
Very good. It's fair value measurement. Yes. Right. So today we are going to discuss about the fair value measurement. Right. So basically, I'm going to start with sharing a Word document. Like before moving to the Qt, I want to elaborate these concepts for you. Let me share the screen. So layout should be landscape, then we can have much more space. All right. So I'm going with some sort of discussion with you, right? So even though we don't have a whiteboard or similar sort of uh, like similar sort of uh, equipment, so therefore we have to use the something we can use in the online platform, right? Okay. Right. So we are going to learn the SLFRS 13. We call it as fair value measurement. Right. So this is the standard we are going to learn right today. Right. So when it comes to the SLFRS 13, right? SLFRS 13. So we have to discuss about the fair value. So what do you mean by this fair value? Yes, anyone knows if you're having any kind of a general idea about this fair value? I don't want the uh, in the layman language, I don't want like layman language you have to say, I don't want the theoretical what do you call the theoretical definition, right? Yes, what do you mean by the fair value? Yes. Yes, what do you mean by the fair value? Yes, guys. Okay, someone is saying market price. Very good. Market price. Yes. Any other idea? Fair value is any asset or liability measure under the market value. Okay, same idea. Market value, market price, market value. Real current value. Okay, a pretty good answer. Real current value. Real current value. Right. Good. Okay, market value. Same market. All right. So you are having a kind of idea about the fair value, right? So let me elaborate this like this, right? So let's say I'm having let's say my grandfather who lives in this grandfather, okay? GF means not the girlfriend, right? Right. Girlfriend meaning grandfather, right? So my grandfather is having a kind of a motor car, right? Let's assume this is a motor car, okay? I'm not good at drawing, right? So he's having a motor car in 1966, right? 1966, and he brought this motor car for 1,000 rupees. See what happened, right? 1,000 rupees, right? So now we are in 2026, right? This motor car is still there, and this motor car is having an antique value now, right? Antique value now. Now it is more than 10 million, 10 million rupees, right? 10 million rupees, right? So let's say now we are doing a business, right? So in my business, this motor car is there. So in my balance sheet or the financial position, right? This motor car mentioned under the current non-current asset as 1,000, right? 1,000. But actually, this motor car is 10 million rupees worth, right? So let's assume that if we are providing a financial statements, right, with this historical value, right, as 1,000, right, what will happen? It will misleading your investors. Because investors, I have discussed with you if we are there in the forensic accounting subject, right? We have discussed because if you are providing a wrong numbers to the investors, what will be happen? The investors are taking, or the stakeholders or the decision makers, by looking at these numbers, are taking wrong economic decisions, right? So therefore, when you are doing the financial statement, or when you are working with the financial statement, so we need to keep the financial statement at the fair value, right? At the fair value, right? Or the current market value. So when you come into the standards, right? There are some standards we using to measure the fair, or we are using the fair valuation. What are the standards? Yes. What are the standards we are using the fair value method? Yes. Any idea? What are the standards? In SLFRS 16, we are using the fair valuation. Right. Right. In LKS 16, we are using the fair valuation. Right. In LKS 40, right, 41, we are using the fair valuation. Right. Right. SLFRS 3, we are using the fair valuation. Right. So all these standards are using the fair valuation. Right. Right. All these standards are, yes, LKS 38, yes, very good. All these standards are using the fair valuation. Right. So actually, even though these standards are used in the fair valuation, there's no standard for fair value measurement, right? All these standards are there for the fair value, right? They're using the fair value, but there's no method to measure the fair value. Right. Sorry, right? So there's no method for the fair value measurement, right? Right. There's no method to value the fair value, right? Measure the fair value. So therefore, so this has been discussed in the year 2005, 2006, right? Period, right? What is the method? What is the method we are using for the fair value measurement, right? So before SLFRS 13 coming in year 2010, 2011, right? 2010, 2011, right? So how we are using the fair value measurement? What is the standards we are following? We are following the standard called, right? There's a no standard. So therefore, we have to follow what? Conceptual framework. Conceptual framework, right? So as you learn in the LOs, I think, if there is a no standards is guiding you, right? For a kind of accounting treatment. So therefore, you have to follow the conceptual framework requirement, right? Conceptual framework requirement. So before SLFRS 13 coming to that, to measure the fair value for these standards, to get the fair value, so we are using the conceptual framework. If you can remember, if you are learning the A-levels, right? If you are learn the conceptual framework in the A-levels, right? There are 4 ways to value the or fair value the assets. So what are the 4 ways under the conceptual framework? Yes, can you remember? Can you remember? Sorry. Yes. Yes, guys. Under the conceptual framework, what are the ways? Yes, very good, very good. Historical value, yes. The first one. Historical value. Historical value. Historical value, yes. Yes. Okay. Current value. Current value, or we can say realizable value. Realizable value. right? Realizable value, right? Right. And also we are having a replacement value. Replacement value. Yes. Any other thing? Yes. Present value. Yeah. So that means the fourth one, right? Present value of future cash flows. Present value of future cash flows. Right. So these are the ways that we have followed before SLFRS 13 coming to act. That means before 2002, 10, 11. So SLFRS 13 actually enact in 2011. Before that, right? Right. The conceptual framework we have followed to measure the fair value. So under the conceptual framework, they have provide some guidelines to measure the fair value. Either you can use the historical value, current realizable value, replacement value, or present value of future cash flows, right? But so this is having a kind of a discussion because there are not clear methods to be mentioned for the fair value measurement, because this fair value measurement is used in a different standards in a different level. So therefore, it's not enough to discuss only in a part of the conceptual framework. So therefore, there is a requirement arise to have a source of single source of guidelines, right? Single source of guidelines to measure the fair value. Single source of guidelines to measure the fair value, right? So therefore, this SLFRS this SLFRS 13 coming up, right? SLFRS 13 coming up, right? So this is the story why we are going to the SLFRS 13, right? Because so many standards are using this fair value. They are using the fair value, but there's no proper guidelines to measurement of the fair value. So therefore, the requirement is arise, right? So therefore, we have implemented or we have introduced, or the ISB introduced SLFRS 13 or IFRS 13 2010-11 to providing a guidance for the single source of measurement guidelines for the fair value, right? Right. For the fair value, right? Right. Right. So this is the history of the SLFRS, sorry, history of the SLFRS 30, right? And the basic understanding of the fair valuation, right? Any questions up to this point? Is it clear? Yes. Is it clear? Right. I hope it's clear. Right. Okay. So the next one, so I will open up another. Okay. Right. So now we are moving to the standards, right? So in the standard, so they have defined the fair value, right? They are defined the fair value, right? So they are defined the fair value as, right? They are defined the fair value as, I will use a different color. What is the good color? Black, purple, right? The fair value is the price, right? That would received to selling an asset. Liability, selling an asset or liability on orderly transaction between market participant at measurement date. Right. Okay. So this is the definition, the standard for the fair value, right? The price that would receive to selling an asset or so paying liability, right? Paying liability on orderly transaction between market participants at measurement date, right? So in this definition, there are a few important points you have to highlight: the price, right, and the orderly transaction, right? Market participants, measurement date, right? Right. So there are few important things: price, orderly transaction, then the market participants. Give me 1 minute, Uda. Sorry. Third one, the market participants. The fourth one, the measurement date. So those are the important points in this definition, right? So when it's called fair value, the fair value definition is the price that would receive to selling an asset or paying liability on an orderly transaction between market participant at the measurement date, right? So read this definition.
Right. So I'm taking the first one, right? I'm starting from the fourth one, right? Measurement date. Let's rub it one by one. Measurement date. Right. So what do you mean by the measurement date? Yes. What do you mean by the measurement date? What the measurement date again? What do you mean by the measurement date? Measurement date again, when we are going to measure, right? Right. So when it comes to measurement, we know there are two types. One is initial measurement. Other one is subsequent measurement. Right. Right. So when it comes to the measurement date, so we can do the measurement at initially and at subsequent date. Right. Can you tell me what are the standards which is using the fair valuation at the initial measurement? What are the standards? Just examples. What are the standards that using the initial measurement using the fair valuation? Yes. Yes. What are the standards? Any idea? Okay, SLFRS 16. Very good. So SLFRS 16, we are using the present value, right? Of lease liability. Yes, very good. SLFRS 16. SLFRS 9. Yes, SLFRS 9. We are using the fair value through profit or loss, fair value through OCI. Right. Yes. And SLFRS 41, we are going to learn this standard in next week, agricultural products. Right. So likewise, these standards are used in the fair value measurement at the initial measurement date. Right. Initial measurement date. So what are the standards which is using what do you call the fair valuation at the subsequent measurement? Yes, subsequent measurement. Right. So SLFRS 3 also we are using when you are calculating the goodwill at the initial stage, right? We are using the fair valuation for the goodwill, right? Subsequent measurement, yes. LKS 16 we are using, LKS 40, right? We are using the fair value. We are using the fair value, right? We are using the fair value, right? We are using the fair value, right? So that would be the measurement date, right? Measurement date means when we are going to measure. So basically we are measuring at initially and subsequently, right? Some standards are using initial measurement for the fair valuation. Some standards are using both the initial and the subsequent measurement, right? So measurement date in sense, it's a time or date we are going to measure, right? Right. The time we are going to measure, right? So when it's come to the measurement date, right? Right. We are using we are using, right? We are using, right? When it's come to this, right? The subsequent measurement, right? We can use on recurring basis. Right. Recurring basis, right? On one-off basis. Right. Recurring basis means අවුරුද්දකට පාරක් බලනවා fair valuation. right? What are the standards, right? LK is 40 recurring basis, right? SLFR is 9 in recurring basis, right? General standards, right? හැම අවුරුද්දම පාරක් බලනවා fair valuation. On one-off basis means only once we are looking for the fair valuation. Only once. So what are the standards? Only once we are looking the fair valuation. Yes. One time. LK16, no, incorrect. LK16 we are revaluing. හැමදාම වගේ revalue කරනවා. Revalue කරලා ඊට revalue gain එක දානවා. අපෝ revalue loss එකක් આવත ආයෙ adjust කරනවා. Only one time. Right? Only one time we are doing the fair valuation. What is the example for this one? No, SLFR also we are doing the valuation sometimes. Right? When you are disposing some shares. There's one standard, we call it SLFRS 5. Asset held for sale. Asset held for sale. Right? So we are using the fair valuation one-off basis. When we are asset held holding for selling, right? Right. So then we have to measure it to the fair value. Right. So that we call just asset held for sale standard SLFRS 5. That is using the fair value for one-off basis, right? One-off basis, right? One-off basis, right? Right? One-off basis, right? Right. So that is about the measurement date, the fourth one. Okay. So I will open up another page. Right. So that is measurement date. Then we need to know about the price. The price. Right. We need to know about the price. Right. Right. So how we can know the price? How we can know the price? කොහොමද සාමාන්‍ය අපි මිල ගාණක් ගැන දැනගන්නේ? How we can know the price? Yes. How to know? Right. So when it comes to the price, right? When it comes to the price, right? How we can know the price? සාමාන්‍යව කොහොමද මිල ගණනක් දැනගන්නේ? යම් කිසි භාණ්ඩයක. Yes. So if you are taking a particular asset, how we can know the price of that particular asset? Yes. How we can know the price of a particular asset? කොහොමද asset එක හරි මොකක් හරි price එක දැනගන්නේ? How we can know? දැන් අම්මා දෙනවා සීනි කිලෝ එකක් ගේන්න කියලා. Right? සීනි කිලෝ එකක් දීලා රුපියල් 100ක් දීලා කියනවා සීනි කිලෝ එකක් අරන් එන්න කියලා. Right? ඔයා දන්නේ ජීවිතේට කඩේ යන්නේ නැහැ ගෙදරලා නිදාගන්න කියලා කරන්නේ. Right? පළවෙනි first time එක කඩේ යන්නේ. ඉතින් plan කරනවා මේ සීනි කිලෝ එකක් ගන්න රුපියල් 100න් කීයක් හරි shape එකේ මේවා කරගන්න. Right? Right? එතකොට ඔයා කොහොමද සීනි කිලෝ එකේ price එක දැනගන්නේ? කොහොමද සීනි කිලෝ එකේ price එක දැනගන්නේ? මොකද ඔයා කරන්න ඕනේ? දැන් නම් ChatGPT දාලා බලන්න පුළුවන් සීනි කිලෝ එකක් කීය ලංකාවේ. අපි හිතමු මේව නැතුව නම් අපිට මොකද කරන්නේ? ChatGPT නැහැ මොබයිල් ෆෝන්ස් උත් නැහැ මොකුත් නැහැ. ඉන්ටර්නෙට් නැහැ. ඔව් කොහොමද දැනගන්නේ? Okay, go grocery and see price list. Very good. ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? Basically, we have to go to the market. right? We have to go to the market to know the price, right? We have to go to the market to know the price, right? Right. So price is what? Kind of a unit of transaction, right? Unit of transaction, right? Unit of transaction. So to know the price, you have to go to the market, right? You have to go to the market. So when you are going to the market, right? Right? When you are going to the market, right? We are having two markets that we can identify, right? What are these two markets? One is principal market. Principal market. Principal market means highest volume of transaction happen in the principal market. වැඩිම ගනුදෙනු ප්‍රමාණයක් වෙන market එකට අපි කියනවා principal markets. The market which is having a highest volume of transaction, we call it as principal market, right? And we are also having most advantageous market. Most advantageous market, right? මොකද්ද? අපිට වඩාත්ම වාසිදායක market, right? Most beneficial market, right? Right. So how we need to know the price? We have to go to the market, right? In the market, we are having two kind of markets. One is principal market, where the highest volume of transactions are happening, right? And also we are having the most advantageous markets. That means most beneficial markets, right? Right. So that is how we need to know the price. So when it's come to the price, right? Pricing of goods. So we have to price two kind of assets, right? Right. Two kinds of assets, right? One is individual asset. Individual asset, right? Like land, right? දැන් හිතන්නකෝ ඉඩමක් තියෙනවා කියලා, right? So ඉඩමේ price එක individual asset එක, right? And also we can have the group asset. Group asset, right? So what are the examples for the group asset? The subsidiary company. So when you are going to buy a subsidiary company, so how the price is deciding? Based on the what? Based on the assets they are having. There are a group of assets. Land තියෙන්න පුළුවන්, vehicles තියෙන්න පුළුවන්, ගොඩනැගිලි තියෙන්න පුළුවන්, right? Right. ගොඩනැගිලි තියෙන්න පුළුවන්, right? So there are so many assets, right? There are so many assets, right? There are so many assets, right? Right. Right. So when it comes to price, right? There is a unit of transaction. To know the price, you have to go to the market. So there are two markets, the principal markets and most advantageous market, right? In this market, we are selling individual assets and the group assets, right? Individual assets and the group assets. So that is the second thing in the definition, right? Okay. The next one, only transaction. Or we can, in simple way, we can say a normal transaction. So what do you mean by the orderly transaction, right? What do you mean by the orderly transaction? What do you mean by the ordinary transaction? මොකක්ද පුතා ordinary transaction එක කියන්නේ? එතන සාමාන්‍ය ගනුදෙනුවක් කියන්නේ. Right. So let's assume that, right? I'm having a motor car, right? I'm having a nice motor car, right? So nowadays I'm looking at someone to sell this, to buy a new one, right? Right. So I'm looking at
someone to sell this. Right? So I'm posting a Facebook, like Facebook advertisement, and what you call Ikman.lk, or what are the other platforms. So there are so many other platforms. So let's assume that I have posted some ads, right? So there is a buyer is coming to me, right? Buyer is coming to me. So I'm supposed to sell my car at 7 million rupees, right? 7 million rupees, right? Right, 7 million rupees, right? So then buyer is coming to me and he is asking my car for 2 million rupees, right? So now I'm here is me, right? Right. So buyer is asking for 2 million. So then I will give පිස්සු මම එහෙම 7 million විකුණන 2 million තුන මට පිස්සු වෙන්න ඕනේ. Right? So I'm having an argument with him. So then what he's doing? Right? He's pointing a gun and say, if you are not going to sell this to me for 2 million rupees, I will kill you. Right? මිලියන දෙකට දුන්න නැත්නම් ඔබව මරනවා. Right? ඒතර මම බය වෙනවා. Right? මම බය වෙලා මිලියන දෙකට මගේ කාර් එක විකුණනවා. Right? ඕගොල්ලෝ එහෙම කරන්න එපා හරි. Right? තුවක්කුවක් අරන් ඇවිල්ලා මට වැඩි දිනවා කියලා මිලියන දෙකට කාර් එක ඉල්ලන්න එපා. Right? මම බය වෙලා කාර් එක මිලියන දෙකට දෙනවා කියනවා. So then what happened? So this transaction happened for 2 million rupees. So if you are recording this as a fair value, it is wrong. Why? Because this transaction is not a normal transaction, right? So this kind of transaction, we call it as distress transactions. Distress transaction. Right? So when you are measuring the fair value, always remember that should be done in an ordinary transaction, in a normal transaction, not a distress transaction, right? මේ නිකන් මං කියුවේ නිකන් අර සාමාන්‍යයෙන් එච්චර theoretical ගැලපෙන්නේ නැති example එකක් නේ. කියන්නේ paper එක ලියන්න බෑනේ. කවුරු එක්කෙනෙක් කියලා මගේ කාර් එක මිලියන 7කට ඉල්ලනවා. හරි මං මිලියන 7කට විකුණනවා. කවුරු එක්කෙනෙක් කියලා මිලියන 2කට ඉල්ලනවා. මං දුන්නා මට වෙඩි තියනවා කියලා මං බය කරලා මගේ මිලියන 2කට කාර් එක අරන්. කියලා ලියන්න බෑනේ paper එකේ. Right? How we can define in a kind of theoretical way. So if you can remember, right, in year 2021, right, year 2021, Sri Lanka face what? Sri Lanka is having a good president called Kolave Matumisa, right? Is it? No. Good time, right? They are in good time because we are in the good governance. යහපාලනයක් තිබ්බනේ, right? මතකද දන්නේ? Right? Right. So I'm not talking about that. Into year 2021, we are facing a kind of a strategic situation called COVID-19, right? Right? COVID-19, right? COVID-19. Once this COVID-19 coming in, I remember in 2021 around March, right? I'm actually working at KPMG in that time, and I'm doing the audit of Ultratech Cement, right? Ultratech Cement. I think I have told you this before, right? So when it comes to this bad situation, right? So normally when you are valuing the shares, when you are valuing the assets, right? We are using the share price of the companies, right? So because of this COVID-19, the share price volatility is very high, right? Why? Because it depends on this distress situation. So therefore, Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka is advising the companies when you are valuing the assets, when you are valuing the financial assets, right? Don't use share prices because it is highly volatile because all these are affected by the distress situation. So these are distress transactions. So when you are in the standard, it says when you are measuring the fair value, it always should be done in a normal transaction, not in a distress transaction, right? So that is why in the